Last night, Jimmy Kimmel Live witnessed the unthinkable, when Morgan Freeman, Hollywood's most revered voice, was kicked off the set after a fiery confrontation that left the legendary actor's dignity in ruins. The man who played God stormed off stage, his iconic composure shattered, his booming voice cracking with rage, leaving viewers stunned and the studio in chaos. What began as a celebration of Freeman's extraordinary career spiraled into a shocking meltdown that's already become the night's most explosive viral moment. The studio still buzzed with disbelief. Security guards flanked the backstage exit, where Freeman had vanished moments earlier, their faces tense, hands hovering near their radios. His final roar, "You know nothing about legacy," echoed through the space, hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. The audience sat frozen, some with phones still raised, capturing the empty chair where Hollywood royalty had just imploded on live television. Kimmel stood center stage, his usual grin replaced by something colder, sharper. "Well, folks, that's what happens when gods think they're above a little earthly humor." His voice carried triumph, but underneath, sources say, even he seemed shaken by what had transpired. The crowd split instantly, some erupting in nervous laughter, others booing. Their loyalties torn between the host's cutting wit and their shock at seeing Freeman fall. Producers huddled near the control booth, headsets crackling with frantic chatter. "Keep rolling," one hissed. "This is gold." But their eyes betrayed the calculation. They'd just witnessed the unraveling of an American icon, a man whose voice had narrated humanity's hopes and dreams for decades. The footage was already hitting social media, clips spreading like wildfire. Freeman loses it on Kimmel, trending within minutes. Sources backstage painted a devastating picture. Freeman's hands had trembled as security guided him away, his famous composure utterly destroyed. 50 years, he'd muttered, his voice raw. 50 years of respect, gone. His team scrambled, phones buzzing, damage control already mobilizing. But the damage was done. The voice of God had cracked, broken, raged in a way nobody thought possible. In the audience, reactions ranged from stunned silence to explosive debate. "He went too far," one woman whispered about Kimmel. "Freeman's a legend." But others defended the host's provocative style. "He exposed the truth," a young man countered. "Even legends can fall." The divide was instant, visceral, the kind that would fuel internet wars for weeks. What had driven Morgan Freeman, the epitome of Hollywood grace, to this breaking point? How had a routine late-night appearance transformed into career-threatening chaos? The answer lay in the 20 minutes of television that nobody saw coming, a clash between reverence and irreverence that would leave one icon victorious and another in ruins. 30 minutes earlier, Morgan Freeman glided into the Jimmy Kimmel Live studio like Hollywood royalty arriving at court. His entrance commanded instant reverence. Crew members paused mid-task, extras whispered his name, a makeup artist actually curtsied. The man who'd portrayed God, presidents, and prophets moved with the quiet authority of someone who'd earned every ounce of respect through 5 decades of excellence. In the green room, Freeman adjusted his charcoal suit jacket, his movements precise, dignified. "Mr. Freeman, you're on in 5, a young producer stammered, starstruck. Freeman nodded, that famous half-smile playing at his lips. Sources say he seemed relaxed, even jovial, signing autographs for staff members who'd worked the show for years but never dared approach a guest before. The audience erupted as Freeman emerged onto the stage. Standing ovation, instant and thunderous. Women clutched their hearts, men nodded with deep respect. This wasn't just another celebrity, this was Morgan Freeman, the voice that had guided them through documentaries, inspired them in films, become the soundtrack to wisdom itself. Kimmel rose from behind his desk, applauding with what seemed like genuine admiration. "Ladies and gentlemen," Kimmel announced, his grin already loaded with mischief, "the man whose voice could make a grocery list sound profound, Morgan Freeman." The audience laughed. Freeman chuckled, settling into the guest chair with practiced ease. But something flickered in his eyes. Sources later noted at the word grocery list. "Morgan, Morgan, Morgan," Kimmel began, leaning back, fingers steepled. "You know, every time you speak, people expect Moses to part the Red Sea. Must be exhausting being God's unofficial spokesman. The joke landed with a thud. Half the audience laughed uncertainly. The other half seemed to hold their breath. Freeman's smile tightened imperceptibly. "I'm just an actor, Jimmy," Freeman replied, his voice maintaining its warm timbre, "though I appreciate the comparison." But insiders caught the slight emphasis on just, the first defensive note in what should have been a celebration. Kimmel pressed on, sensing blood in the water. "Just an actor who's cornered the market on gravitas. Seriously, do you practice making 'pass the salt' sound biblical?" The host mimicked Freeman's distinctive cadence, exaggerating it to the point of mockery. Some audience members laughed harder now, emboldened by Kimmel's irreverence. Freeman shifted in his seat, the movement subtle but telling. "I've been fortunate with my roles," he said carefully. "But every actor brings something unique to their work." His hands, usually still during interviews, began to gesture slightly, a tell that those who knew him recognized as discomfort. The anticipation that had filled the studio began to curdle. Something was off. The reverence was cracking, giving way to an edge nobody had expected. Kimmel's playfulness had teeth, and Freeman's legendary composure showed its first hairline fracture. Kimmel leaned forward, his eyes glinting with something sharper than humor. "Let's talk about your recent work, Morgan. Zombie Apocalypse 4, Attack of the Cyber Squirrels." He held up movie posters, each more ridiculous than the last. "From Shakespeare to this, what happened to the Morgan Freeman who made us cry? In Shawshank?" Freeman's jaw tightened, the muscle visible beneath his skin. "Every role serves a purpose, Jimmy. Sometimes that purpose is entertaining families." His voice, usually a river of calm, carried an undercurrent of steel. Sources say his hands gripped the armrests, knuckles subtly whitening. Entertaining. Or cashing in. Kimmel's grin widened, predatory now. "Come on, Morgan. You're doing voiceovers for credit card companies. The voice of God selling MasterCards. That's quite a fall from grace, isn't it?" The audience shifted uncomfortably, some gasping at the boldness, others nodding along. "Fall from grace," Freeman repeated, his voice dropping an octave. Not the warm bass audiences loved, but something harder, more dangerous. "I've worked for 50 years, built a legacy most actors dream of. If I choose to take lighter roles now, that's my prerogative." The word legacy came out like a warning shot. Kimmel smelled blood. Legacy. Is that what we're calling it when you show up for 5 minutes in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 6 and collect a paycheck? I mean, De Niro does comedies, but at least he commits. You're just phoning it in. He shrugged, playing to the crowd's mixed reactions, some laughing nervously, others looking genuinely uncomfortable. The studio temperature seemed to drop. Freeman straightened in his chair, his presence suddenly filling more space. "Phoning it in?" His famous voice cracked slightly on the words. "I've given everything to this industry. Everything." Producers in the control booth exchanged worried glances, one whispering urgently into her headset. "Have you, though?" Kimmel pressed, relentless. "Or are you just coasting on that voice? I mean, let's be honest, you could read the phone book and people would call it profound. Maybe you've been doing exactly that for the past decade." The joke landed like a slap. Half the audience booed, the other half seemed frozen, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Freeman's composure, that legendary calm that had weathered decades of Hollywood, showed visible cracks. His breathing changed, chest rising and falling more rapidly. "You have no idea," he began, then stopped, catching himself. But the damage was done. Morgan Freeman, the unshakable icon, was shaking. "Oh, I think I do," Kimmel countered, his voice silk over steel. "I think we all do. The question is, when did Morgan Freeman stop being an artist and become a brand?" The silence that followed was deafening. Freeman's eyes, usually warm and wise, had gone cold. The interview had become an interrogation, and something in the air promised it would only get worse. The stage lights seemed to pulse with the tension, casting harsh shadows across Freeman's face. Kimmel pulled out his phone, scrolling theatrically. "Speaking of your brand, let's review some of your recent wisdom, shall we? Twitter's been collecting your pearls." He adopted a mock-serious tone, mimicking Freeman's cadence. "The best way to guarantee a loss is to quit." Wow, groundbreaking. Did you steal that from a gym poster? Freeman's eyes narrowed to slits. The audience divided sharply, boos mixing with uncomfortable laughter, phones rising everywhere to capture the moment. Sources say the studio's atmosphere had turned electric, dangerous like the air before lightning strikes. Get busy living or get busy dying, Kimmel continued, his voice dripping sarcasm. That's not even yours, that's from Shawshank. But you tweet it like you're Confucius. Oh, here's another gem. Challenge yourself. It's the only path to growth. Morgan, my fortune cookie last night was more profound. He tossed imaginary paper. At least it came with a cookie. That's when Freeman stood. The movement was sudden, volcanic. 6 feet of contained fury rising from the guest chair, his famous composure shattering completely. You think wisdom is a joke? His voice boomed across the studio. Not the gentle narrator's tone audiences knew, but something primal, wounded. You sit there making jokes while people find hope in those words? Kimmel didn't flinch, didn't back down. Hope? Or hollow platitudes from an actor playing philosopher? Come on, Morgan, you're not Buddha. You're a guy who pretended to be God in a movie. There's a difference. The cruelty in his delivery was surgical, precise. I've inspired millions, Freeman's voice cracked with rage, his hands gesturing wildly. My words have helped people through darkness, through pain you couldn't imagine. The audience gasped collectively. This wasn't acting. This was raw, bleeding emotion from a man who'd never shown it publicly. Phones captured every second. Freeman. Snaps on Kimmel was already trending. Comments flooded in. Never seen him like this. Kimmel went too far. This is insane. The digital audience choosing sides in real time, the studio audience torn between loyalty to a legend and shock at his unraveling. Inspired them with what? Kimmel stood too, matching Freeman's energy. Recycled motivational quotes, you're a walking Instagram post, Morgan. A voice without substance. He paused, delivering the killing blow. Maybe that's all you ever were. Freeman's whole body trembled. 50 years of dignity, decades of careful image cultivation crumbling in real time. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. When he finally spoke, his voice was unrecognizable, raw, broken, furious. You know nothing about substance, nothing about legacy, nothing about what I've built. His finger pointed at Kimmel, shaking with rage. The icon was falling, and everyone watching knew there was no stopping it now. The stage had transformed into a battleground. 2 titans locked in combat with words as weapons. Security guards moved closer to the set's edges, their bodies tensed, ready. Sources say producers were frantically debating whether to cut to commercial, but the raw drama was ratings gold they couldn't abandon. Let's cut through the act, Morgan. Kimmel circled like a predator, his voice razor sharp. This whole wise elder statesman thing, it's performance art, isn't it? You're not some guru. You're an actor who got typecast as profound and ran with... Sirosa, he gestured dismissively. The sage of Hollywood, please. Freeman's hands began to shake visibly, tremors running through his fingers. Act. The word came out strangled, his legendary voice cracking like old leather. I've lived these words, earned this wisdom through pain, through loss you couldn't comprehend. His whole frame vibrated with barely contained fury. Lived them? Or memorized them from scripts? Kimmel's assault was merciless. You play wise men so often you started believing you were one. But strip away the voice, the gravitas. What's left? An old man quoting movies he was in 30 years ago. The audience gasped, some shouting, too far. Others sat mesmerized by the destruction unfolding. How you dare? Freeman's voice broke completely, decades of control shattering. His face contorted with rage, eyes wild, nothing like the serene figure America had worshipped. I've mentored young actors, guided careers, been a voice of reason in this insane industry. A voice of reason? You're a voice for hire, Kimmel shot back. Documentaries, commercials, video games. Slap Morgan Freeman's voice on anything and it sounds important. You're not a mentor, you're a merchant, selling gravitas by the pound. He paused, going for the jugular. Your entire persona is a lie, Freeman. Lurched forward, security stepping closer. His breathing came in ragged gasps, chest heaving. Lie, lie. His hands clenched and unclenched, the tremors worse now. I built something real, something that matters. You're nothing but a parasite, feeding off others' accomplishments. The transformation was complete. Morgan Freeman, the voice of God, the epitome of dignity, stood before millions looking unhinged, human, breakable. His shirt had come untucked, sweat beading on his forehead, eyes darting wildly. This wasn't just anger. This was devastation. Real. Kimmel laughed coldly. What's real is that you're having a meltdown on live TV because someone finally called out your act. The mask is slipping, Morgan, and underneath, just another Hollywood fake. Freeman's mouth opened and closed soundlessly, his entire body trembling. The wise man was gone. In his place stood a broken icon, stripped of every defense, every carefully crafted layer of dignity. His hand reached for the desk to steady himself, missing, stumbling slightly. The audience held its collective breath. This was no longer entertainment. This was witnessing a legend's complete destruction. The breaking point arrived like thunder. After lightning, Freeman's entire body convulsed with rage, his hands finding the lapel microphone clipped to his jacket. In one violent motion, he ripped it free, the wire snapping, sparks of feedback shrieking through the studio speakers. Enough! The word exploded from Freeman's throat, not his measured narrator's tone, not the voice of God, but a primal roar that shook the studio walls. He hurled the microphone across the stage, the device clattering against Kimmel's desk, scattering coffee and papers. You want to see real? I'll show you real. The audience erupted in pandemonium. Some screamed, others stood on chairs filming, phones capturing every second of the legend's complete meltdown. He's lost it, someone shouted. Morgan, no, cried another. The studio became a cauldron of chaos, 50 years of reverence evaporating. In seconds, Freeman stalked toward Kimmel, his movements erratic, uncontrolled. You smug little bastard! His voice cracked between octaves, the famous baritone shredding into something unrecognizable. You sit there judging me? Me? I've forgotten more about this business than you'll ever know. Spit flew from his lips. His face contorted beyond recognition. Security rushed the stage from both wings. 2 guards reached Freeman first, their hands gentle but firm on his arms. He thrashed against them, strength surprising for his age. Don't touch me, I'll walk. But his legs buckled slightly, the adrenaline crash visible in real time. Kimmel stood unmoved, his expression coldly triumphant. There it is. Folks, the real Morgan Freeman, not so wise now, are we? His voice carried over the chaos, each word a nail in the coffin of Freeman's dignity. Guess the mask finally fell off completely. You know nothing about legacy, Freeman roared as security guided him backward, his voice breaking completely on the last word. His pristine suit was disheveled, shirt untucked, sweat streaming down his face. The composed elder statesman had become a wild-eyed stranger. Nothing. The crowd's reaction split violently, half booing Kimmel's cruelty, half stunned into silence. By Freeman's transformation, phones captured every angle, every stumble, every crack in the facade. This is insane. I can't believe this. Morgan Freeman just snapped. The commentary overlapped, creating a chorus of disbelief. As security escorted Freeman toward the wings, he turned one last time. His eyes, those wise, knowing eyes that had gazed from 1,000 screens, were now wild, lost, broken. You'll regret this, he gasped, the words barely audible over the studio chaos. All of you. Kimmel straightened his tie, his smile sharp. As a blade. The only regret here is that it took this long for everyone to see the truth. He turned to the cameras. We'll be right back after this unscheduled break. The last image. Morgan Freeman being led away. America's wise man reduced to a shaking, stumbling figure disappearing into the shadows. Backstage, Morgan Freeman collapsed against a concrete wall, his body shaking with something between rage and devastation. His team swarmed around him, publicist, manager, assistants, their faces pale with shock. Morgan, we need to get you out of here, his publicist urged, but Freeman wasn't listening. His eyes stared at nothing, seeing 50 years of carefully built reputation crumbling in real time. 50 years, he whispered, his voice hoarse, unrecognizable. 50 years of respect. Gone. His hands trembled as he tried to straighten his jacket, the gesture pathetic in its futility. Sources say tears actually pooled in his eyes, Morgan Freeman crying. The image would haunt everyone who witnessed it. Back on stage, Kimmel was conducting his victory lap. "Well, that was unexpected." He grinned at the audience, some still stunned, others beginning to cheer. "Guess we learned tonight that even gods can fall, especially when they're false gods." The line drew mixed reactions, applause from some, horrified silence from others. But Kimmel fed off the energy, his triumph complete. The internet had already detonated. Morgan Freeman loses it, trending worldwide within minutes. The microphone throw, replayed endlessly. His roar of "enough," already a meme. Freeman destroyed. On live TV, racked up millions of views. Comments flooded in. "I can't believe I just watched Morgan Freeman die inside." "Kimmel murdered a legend. This is the worst thing I've ever seen." Freeman's team hustled him toward the parking garage, but he stopped at the exit door. "They'll remember this," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "Not the films, not the wisdom. This." His publicist tried to disagree, but the truth hung heavy. He was right. 50 years of gravitas destroyed in 20 minutes of television. "Mr. Freeman, the car's waiting," his driver called out. But Freeman stood frozen, watching his phone light up with notifications, his Twitter followers dropping by thousands, his inspirational quotes now retweeted with laughing emojis. The transformation. From icon to punchline happening in real time, each notification another nail in his legacy's coffin. Kimmel, meanwhile, was already planning his next show's opening. "Tomorrow night, we'll discuss what happens when icons think they're above criticism," he told producers. His ratings would spike, controversy always sold. He'd taken down Hollywood royalty and emerged victorious, his reputation as fearless cemented. The clips spread like wildfire. Freeman's trembling hands, his cracking voice, the microphone flying through the air. Each replay stripped away another layer of the mystique he'd spent decades building. Young viewers who'd grown up with his voice narrating their lives watched, their childhood narrator implode. "This changes everything," one entertainment reporter tweeted. "Morgan Freeman isn't Moses anymore. He's just a man who fell apart on TV." The assessment was brutal but accurate. The voice of God had been silenced by a late-night host with a cruel streak. The question now, could Morgan Freeman ever recover? From this public execution, 24 hours after the implosion, Hollywood remained in shock. The footage had been dissected frame by frame. Freeman's transformation from deity to mortal replayed endlessly across every platform. News anchors struggled to maintain objectivity while discussing the fall of an American icon. "Last night we witnessed something unprecedented," one CNN host intoned, the complete public destruction of Morgan Freeman's carefully crafted image. Industry insiders split into warring camps. "Kimmel went too far," Steven Spielberg told reporters outside a Beverly Hills restaurant. "Morgan Freeman has given more to cinema than that entire show combined." But younger directors saw it differently. "Maybe it's time we stopped worshipping celebrities," tweeted Jordan Peele. Kimmel exposed something real, even if it was brutal. Freeman himself had vanished. No statements, no social media activity, complete radio silence. His team deflected all inquiries with, "Mr. Freeman is taking time to reflect." But sources close to the actor painted a darker picture. He'd locked himself in his home, refusing calls, watching his legacy crumble in real time. His inspirational quotes, once shared reverently, now appeared with mocking commentary. The voice of God had been muted. Kimmel's show, meanwhile, experienced its highest ratings in 5 years. His opening monologue the next night was unapologetic. "Some say I destroyed a legend. I say I revealed a truth. If your legacy can't survive 20 minutes of questions, maybe it wasn't that solid to begin with." The audience erupted, half cheering, half conflicted. But the numbers didn't lie. Controversy had made him the most watched late-night host in America. The cultural divide deepened by the hour. Back on Team Freeman and Team Kimmel trended simultaneously. Older viewers mourned the loss of a hero. They didn't just attack Morgan, they attacked everything he represented. wisdom, dignity, experience. Younger audiences celebrated the takedown. Finally, someone called out the fake wisdom industrial complex. These celebrities think they're philosophers. Film studios scrambled to assess the damage. 2 Freeman narration projects were quietly shelved. A documentary about wisdom and aging suddenly seemed impossible, with its narrator exposed as just another Hollywood ego. But others saw opportunity. Netflix reportedly offered Freeman a reality show titled After the Fall, promising an intimate look at rebuilding a shattered image. The question haunted Hollywood. Could Morgan Freeman come back from this? History suggested redemption was possible. Celebrities had survived scandals before. But this was different. This wasn't a private mistake exposed. This was a public execution of an image 5 decades in the making. The voice of God had roared in anger, and that sound would echo forever. He'll either emerge stronger or disappear entirely, one Hollywood insider predicted. There's no middle ground after something like this. The legend had fallen. Whether he could rise again remained the question that would define Morgan Freeman's true legacy. Not the voice of wisdom, but the man who lost it all in 20 minutes of television.